Isaac Hernandez.
And I'm Holly McClure.
And this is Faith on Film, a program designed to keep you informed on everything that's happening in the world of faith and family entertainment. How are you, Holly?
Doing great. And I'm very excited about today's show because we're going to be talking about a movie that's based on a true story. And it's a story that I feel is going to impact probably every person who's watching it, because what are we dealing with today? What's one of the big topics in culture? Racism. That's one of the big topics, but also really faith and the attack on the church and on Christians. And so this story has it all and more. It's going to be exciting to talk about.
Yes, it is. And the movie releases October 21st. So get out there and see it. It's releasing nationwide in, I think, over 500 theaters. So that's a pretty good release for a movie.
And what's the name of the movie?
It is called Paul's Promise. Now, that doesn't quite tell us what the movie's all about, so we probably should take a look at a clip.
Let's watch it.
To find out. And of course, after the clip, we'll get to talk to the star of the movie, and he'll tell us all about it, all right? All right, here we go.
I dreamed that Paul found Jesus. Every day I've been praying because I believe it would come true.
And you don't know that he won't.
I'd like to be here to see it.
All right. If you pass and Paul finds God 2 weeks afterwards, will that sit all right with your soul?
Ain't nobody gonna pray for that child like I do.
I will.
I have your word.
You know you have it. Good to see you, Paul. You too. You know, if you ever want to come down to the office, we could talk or pray if you'd like.
Probably not. You can pray for me if you want. You can give the man upstairs a big thank you for me.
What would you like me to thank him for?
You can thank him for rewarding all my mama's years of faithfulness by giving her cancer. God is good all the time.
Paul, I know this is hard, and I'm so sorry that this is happening. Know that God is right here with you. He's sad about this too. He grieves with you.
How can you say that? You know what she's been through. Was God with us then?
I know it didn't feel like it, but I guarantee you he was. And more than that, he can take all of this, all of the anger and the pain and the fear, all of it, and he can make it into something new and beautiful.
Yeah, well, he better hurry up. She ain't got long to see it.
I wasn't talking about your mama, Paul. You lived that same hard life with her. Just because you didn't get the same bruises she did doesn't mean your daddy didn't leave a mark on you. Will was a broken man with a lot of demons haunting him. And he lashed out in a whole lot of horrible ways. But you can't change that.
I swear if you say the word forgive.
I'm not going to say forgive. What I'm saying is that sometimes you can focus so much on one thing that you lose sight of everything else. Your daddy stole a lot of joy from you, your mom, and your family. Don't let him steal what little time you have left.
Mama? I'm done with work. I talked to the doctor.
My liver just quit.
I didn't know a liver could just up and quit. I'm sorry I wasn't here last night. I should have been here.
Hush. I forgive you. You know I always will.
Yeah, I know, Mama.
You think any more about taking my prayer list to church?
I have. I'll take it for you.
No. You promise?
I promise.
Oh. Oh, that makes me so happy. You gotta listen to the pastor when he gives the call.
Let's just focus on one promise at a time, all right?
Fair enough. Not gonna stop me from praying for it, though. God knows the kind of man you're gonna turn out to be. Just have to remind him to get started.
Ryan, welcome to Faith on Film.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Now,
Yes,
I
the
wanna-
star of the movie, Ryan
Yeah.
O'Quinn. I mean, that was a great performance. I just want to say, I've watched it
Oh, it
several
was.
times now, and again, that was just so powerful. It's so moving.
Let me give you a
Oh,
quick
you're too
introduction
kind.
here. Let me give you a quick, just so people get an idea a little bit about who you are. But Ryan Quinn is a film and television actor and producer, also the founder and CEO of Damascus Road Productions, a Los Angeles-based film and television production company specializing in family content. You're also known apparently for being on shows like Beverly Hills 90210, Alias, Jag, Melrose Place, and Third Rock from the Sun. As well as films like Starship Troopers and The Thing That You Do, which was directed, of course, by Tom Hanks. Something else that I was able to pick up from the film, by the way, is that it also seems to deal with generational curses and the breaking of a generational curse, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right. And not only is that biblical, of course, but, it's a real thing. And so in the case of Paul Holderfield Sr., who I play in the film, he's cursed. He's, squarely standing on the shoulders of those that have come before him. And you could say that he was, the sins of the father is a real thing. And so he's trying to figure out how best to overcome that. And as you see, a theme of of his journey throughout is not wanting to be compared to his father.
This is based on a true story, isn't it, Ryan? Which I think makes it even more compelling, is that there were really a family who did this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's based on a true story. And the movie is set in 1967, Little Rock, Arkansas, in the height of the civil rights movement, of course, in the American South. And it's a true story of a man named Paul Holderfield, who, by his own admission, was a racist, a bigot, not a good guy. And he had a childhood best friend who was black. And they were both sons of sharecroppers in their childhood, and they were best buddies in every sense of the word. And then, as they got into their middle school years and their high school years, and sycophant friends and others started speaking into their life, it was uncool to be hanging out with each other. And Paul, was, again, by his own admission, the worst of these, and he turned his back, literally and figuratively, on his best friend. As a matter of fact, we tweaked it a little bit for artistic reasons, but the true story, when he reconnected with Jimmy Lipkin, was around the Little Rock 9 incident in 1957, when those 9 students were ushered into Central High School in Little Rock, and Paul Holderfield, who was a firefighter at the time, was there on sort of a safety mission and trying to keep the peace. And his childhood best friend walked up to him and saw him and said, assumed that he was there in support of the Little Rock 9, and stuck his hand out to greet him. And Paul said he stuck his hands in his back pocket and pretended like he didn't know the man. And that really haunted him for a number of years until, honestly, the Lord got hold of his life and he did a complete 180.
Wow. Was any of the family or participants that are in the movie, those characters, are any still alive today?
Paul Holderfield Sr. is not alive. He passed away in 1998. His son, Paul Jr., is now the senior pastor of that church. So he stepped into his father's big shoes and is the pastor of that church, which has grown exponentially in the last 50 years. Paul Sr.'s other 2 children, Paula and Philip Holderfield, are also in vocational ministry at that same church. Jimmy Lipkin passed away several years ago, but the 2 men were very close friends. And it's been such a unique and fun opportunity to get to meet the descendants of the real family. So before we started filming, we got a chance to sit with the Holderfield family and talk to them. I got a chance to pour through videos and read the books and look at sermon notes from Paul, and really try to dive into the character of the man and understand, kind of what he was about. And Joseph Cannon, who plays opposite me, who plays Jimmy Lipkin in the movie, he's gotten a chance to connect with the grandchildren of some of Jimmy's family, which is very sweet.
Oh my gosh.
How did you find this story?
Yeah, good question. There was a screenplay. Firstly, there was a book. Paul wrote a book. Was published through the Foundry Press, which is the in-house publishing arm of the Nazarene Church. So he founded Friendly Chapel Church of the Nazarene in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and he wrote an autobiography alongside an author named Kathy Tharp. And he just wrote his life story. And the name of the book is called Brother Paul. So Brother Paul was optioned by our executive producer, Nick Logan, who lives in Virginia, and saw that there was really a good story here, a good true story that the world needed to hear about. So he commissioned a screenplay to be written, and then he reached out to one of our other producers, Michael Davis, who lives in North Carolina, who has a company called Uptone Pictures, and he and I had partnered together on a couple of projects. And then Michael reached out to my company, Damascus Road Productions, and after we took a look at the book and read the script, we knew that this was a story that needed to see the light of day. So we greenlit it very quickly in the world of Hollywood. In the grand scheme of things, it tends to take forever to get things off the ground. So we greenlit it really quickly and went into production within a few months.
And it stars one of our dear friends, Nancy Stafford, who Isaac and I have known for many years. So I loved seeing her in it as well.
Nancy is amazing. She is so good in this movie. And, we were so blessed to get our first choice of cast. Everybody that we wanted to be in this movie, on the production side, you sort of have a short list of people, your wish list of cast. And Nancy was at the top of the list. In fact, we created a character. It's a fictional character that was not really named Gertrude or Judy in Mama's real life, but it was an amalgam of several characters that we stuck together. And I'm telling you, Nancy knocked it out of the park. She was so great in this role, and she's won several Best Supporting Actress awards and film festivals all over the country for this. So she tackled it with excellence, and we were so glad to get her.
I have seen that. In fact, Linda Pearl is another name from the past that I recognize. Yes. Linda Pearl, oh my gosh, I remember watching her when I was a kid.
Yeah, Linda plays my mother in this movie. And again, another one of those just real blessings where we had a person on the short list, and we said, wouldn't it be great if ... And sure enough, schedules freed up and it worked out. And Linda is so good. Like Nancy, she's also won a ton of Best Actress awards for this role. And she's so good in this. And fun fact, when you may know this already, but when Nancy was on a series called Matlock, of course, a television series. And when she left the show, she was replaced by, or another character slid in place, not the same character, but Linda Pearl was in Nancy's place the next season of the show, and they reconnected for the first time in years on our movie. So they were both.
I did not know that.
Wow,
I did not know that. Oh, wow. I'm so glad you said that, because we did not know that. Wow, that's interesting.
And of course, you also had Superman on this movie. Okay, so he's not Superman, but he does play one on TV, doesn't he?
That's exactly right. Yeah, Superman. I often say Dean Cain is the closest thing to Superman that I've been around. Right. He's just such a humble guy, and he's just an extraordinary talent. And again, another one of those opportunities where we had another project with Dean, and I said, hey, wouldn't it be great if you would come alongside? And it was sort of a favor to the production where he comes in and he plays my boss, who's the fire chief in the movie. And again, as always with Dean Cain, he flashes that $1 million smile, and you just fall in love with his character. So
he's the Christian Superman. He's a Christian Superman.
Exactly.
Well, this movie is really, first of all, because it's set in the 60s, I think that there's a whole generation that have no idea of what went on back then and what went on with kids and teenagers. And really some of the same thing is going on today. We hate to say it, but in a different way politically, with racism and putting people against each other, and politically and in jobs and companies and stuff. So even though it's a true story from another time, it's very relevant for today, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. And, we were in the zeitgeist of arguably of examining where we are as a country in the fall of 2020. It was shortly after George Floyd. And we're really, as a nation, I believe, examining where have we been, where are we now, and where are we going as a country, and really forced all of us to examine our lives and race relations specifically. And this movie just happened to be, I think we're still examining that today. And this movie happens to be, in my opinion, perfect timing for us to continue the conversation, because it is a true story about a real man who examined exactly that. And he was, again, by his own admission, a racist guy who was malinformed and not a great guy, and really, because of the Bible, dived into what the Lord says about discrimination and specifically about racism, and really asked the big question: what does this mean to me? How does this affect and apply to my life? And what is the Lord calling me to do as a result? And, Paul Holderfield would have been the first to say he didn't set out to start a church. He didn't set out to change the world. He didn't set out to change Little Rock. He really just examined his own life based on what the Bible plainly says, and then adjusted accordingly.
In fact, I just want to throw this in while you just said that. He started a church that was one of the first integrated church in the American South.
That's right. And that church is still going strong today. And, it was nearly unheard of, to have a black person and a white person, or multi races preaching from the pulpit, certainly in the height of the civil rights era in the South in the 1960s. And Paul Holderfield was one of the guys that said it's not biblical for me to behave this way. And it was just such a fascinating story. We didn't have the time to creatively go into their reconnection, with in this particular movie. But the true story is, he was preaching. He was an itinerant preacher around Little Rock and all around Arkansas. And he would often tell the story in his sermons. He would often tell the story about how he had denied his best friend. And he was preaching at a rural church, outside of Little Rock. And he told that story. And apparently these two little old ladies came up to him afterwards and said, "Hey, by the way, what was the name of that guy that you denied, and your childhood best friend?" And he said, I'm sure that he's long gone by now, and he's probably long dead, but his name was Jimmy Lipkin. And the two women said, "Oh, well, if it's the same Jimmy Lipkin, he lives right around the corner." And the name of the area was Dixie Annex. And they reconnected all those years later, and Paul asked him for forgiveness. And so you see that scene at the end of the movie, which is a recreation of a real event where the two men shook hands, and Paul had the moniker Brother Paul, and Jimmy apparently called him Brother Paul and forgave him for that. And then Paul invited him to preach at his church regularly.
Wow. I love that you told that. Thank you. Because that's the story after the story. And I love that.
Exactly.
Well,
that you added that.
As long as we're into the story after the story, how about if you let us just give us a little insight into you? Who are you? How did you get started in Christian filmmaking?
Yeah, thank you. I've had, like many other actors, producers, I've had kind of a weird roller coaster journey. I grew up in Virginia, didn't have any family or know anybody in the business at all, and just felt like there was some modicum of calling on my life to do something in ministry. And I toyed with the idea of vocational ministry early on, and had a very good mentor who spoke into my life and said, the last thing the world needs is a half-hearted pastor. And so I loaded up my little red car and drove 3,000 miles. That was just over 25 years ago. And I landed on this side of the country in the heart of Hollywood, and tried to figure it out. So I, like many other actors on the journey, I had a small little agent that I was with, and then a little bigger agent, and a little bigger manager. And then just to make a long story longer, I went on tour from 2003 to 2013. I did large platform church events as a stand-up comedian, and primarily at big Christian music festivals and things like that, and was a host of and a comedian on a bunch of tours all over the place. And then finally, 10 years into that, three kids under 5 years old, my wife was ready to pull her hair out and mine. And I realized I needed to come off the road. And then I dived back in front of the camera again, and landed a movie called Believe that Sony picked up, and that led to a production company. And again, a long-winded story, but now we're in the faith and family marketplace, and seek to, through my company, put films out into the world that have an element of truth in them.
I was going to ask you about that, because I read, as I was reading up on you, I read that you were a comedian, and what I saw in the movie, of course, is nothing funny at all. And I'm like,
my wife is the first to say that. She's like, the last few movies you've done, no one would ever know that. So I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But.
I know, but I also read that you are a #1 best-selling author.
Yeah. Thankfully,
tell us about that.
thankful to, again, such a weird career track. But a few years ago, I accidentally was part of a viral video company, and that really spawned out of a Bible study that met in my backyard, and a bunch of guys that would meet regularly in my backyard. And we were kind of in the height of Frozen, if you remember Disney's Frozen. And so I found myself as a 40-something-year-old guy who knew every line to a Disney musical, was singing it out loud in the shower. And so one of us at some point said, and I think this is how all great ideas get started, one of us said, what would be funny, ... And it was, we decided to shoot a funny viral video. The plan was never to go viral. I don't think there's any recipe necessarily. You can't predict viral. You can't make viral. It just happens. But again, we were in the height of Frozen, and we rewrote one of the songs to Disney's Frozen, and viral happened, and we had millions of hits, and that spawned into an opportunity to write a book, which was based on my stand-up. So my first book was called Parenting Rules, The Hilarious Handbook for Surviving Parenthood. So it was a number one bestseller on Amazon.
And still is on Amazon, so people can still read it and still do it. So you are also in Starship Troopers. I'm laughing because I love that movie, actually. It's a good sci-fi classic. It's a cult classic, actually.
It really is. And I have to look behind. I did have it on the wall behind me. I think they moved it to another part of the office. But that was one of my first movies. I did That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks and Starship Troopers right around the same time, and back-to-back movies. And none of us at the time knew what we had on our hands for sure. And I know the crew and cast of both those movies would tell you the same thing. But for Starship Troopers, obviously it's become a cult hit. And I'm still in contact with Casper and Patrick and Denise still to this day. And, it's just, we're all sort of amazed that it's caught fire. I run into people all over the place that know and love that movie.
It is a cult classic. I wasn't kidding. It really is. People love that movie. And Casper is a Christian, and I haven't seen him much lately, but he's beloved. He's done some great pieces before. Hoping to see him again.
Great guy. He just did a great turn. He was in a Western film that a friend of mine was part of, and he just did a great role. He's got that just perfect, rugged, chiseled look, and he'd probably blush if he were sitting next to me right now. But he's just perfect for those kind of hero roles, and but he's still doing great.
Well, I want to ask you real quickly about your development company and what your production company, I should say, and what are some of the future projects we can look forward to seeing, in the next few months or years that you're working on?
Yeah, we have several right around the corner here. I'm really excited about one that's coming out. I'll be judicious because of NDAs and contracts and things like that. But I'll just tease it by saying it's a story of the first Black millionaire in this country. Who was an 11-year-old little girl. And so we're very excited about that story. And I think it's just going to, it's going to do very well. And again, another one of those stories that's a true story that is kind of lost to history and most of us don't know about. So I'm excited about that one. We have another one about a rural pastor and a pastor of a mega church in the city. They grew up brothers that were kind of at odds with each other, and one pastor's a big church, one pastor's a small church, and they're still kind of at odds at who's really doing kingdom work. I have another movie that's actually coming out in theaters this Christmas. In fact, I think it opens December 2nd. An amazing, I say amazing because I'm biased, a very funny movie, I should say, called Bringing Back Christmas. That's sort of an homage to Christmas classics, like It's a Wonderful Life, where a character goes back in time and he happens to be present when Mary and Joseph are getting ready to have the baby. And so you realize people have had it bad for 2,000 years and it's going to be okay. Suck it up. So a Christmas comedy, Bringing Back Christmas.
And is that going to be released in theaters?
Yeah. We'll be in release select theaters around the country first week of December, and then we'll roll into streaming and DVD right after.
Now, that's the movie that was shot at Capernaum Studios, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Holly,
very good. Very good
your stomping
research.
grounds.
I remember when you guys were working on it, as a matter of fact, because I met the other producers, Ariel, her husband, and
yep.
I remember pulling up one day, and I don't know if you were there, but there were several that were there, including Ariel, and I forgot her husband's name. What's her husband's name?
Trey.
Thank you. And they were praying in front of the ticket office. They were praying before they walked down on the set. And I just thought that was so touching. I took a little video of it. And when you guys are going to do your movie, when it's going to come out, I'm going to show some stuff on social media to say when they were at Capernaum, this was a praying crew. It was really impressive. and these
Well,
people.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a great crew, and it's the first time I had filmed in Texas, and it was such a great crew and just an excellent crew base and people to pull from, and several of those days. You remember it was this past summer, and you guys know just as well. But we were at triple digit heat, and several of the days we had upwards of 75 extras that were on set, and it was 110, 115 degrees, and I often say those Texans are hardy stock because they not only did nobody keel over, they asked if they could come back the next day. So
it was I can testify it was hot out there, especially if you're wearing costume too.
Yeah, exactly. We're in that that first century period attire, and it's just heavy, and the wool and the headpieces, and it was just miserable, but we survived.
Oh my gosh, we're looking forward to that. And again, that's bringing back Christmas, and that'll be in December. Right. So that's going to come. Right. Okay, you mentioned something, and I know we're running out of time, short of time, but the first Black millionaire was a girl. I thought it was a Black woman who did cosmetics. That was the first.
That was a little bit later, but the first was a Black little girl named Sarah Rector in Oklahoma. Wow. She was 11 years old, and they struck oil on her property. So they were given a plot of land. If you could prove that you could read and write, and were a descendant of a slave, you got a plot of land that was often barren, and there was nothing they could do with it anyway. But they struck oil on her property, and I'm giving the whole story away, but she ended up, getting her whole community out of poverty and giving away most of her money to the church and starting an orphanage, and a huge philanthropist. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm glad you just said that because I want to see that movie. Yes. I want to see that movie. That's an exciting story.
When do you guys plan to go in production on that?
Tentatively in January of 23, January of next year.
Nice. Well, we may then have to have you back.
I was going to say, we're going to be talking to you every 6 months. You're a busy guy.
That's a good thing. And I'll come on anytime. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, we thank you for... go ahead.
Do we have time, Isaac? Do we have another minute?
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. Doing the movie, it had a lot of scenes, different kind. What was your favorite scene? What was one that you walked away with going, boy, I love that scene, and that really touched you?
Yeah, although it was a hard one, probably my favorite one, which is in the trailer, is the scene where Paul loses it with his wife, and he's just at the boiling point, and he's in the kitchen, and just everything has come to a head. He's wrestling with his own thoughts about racism. He's wrestling with his best friends at the firehouse who would lay down their lives for him, but they don't believe the things that he does. And so he's just at a boiling point, and he throws a wine bottle against a wall, and he just has this moment of just breaking down, and then he sees his children and has to snap out of it. So just as an actor, that emotional journey was difficult, but I think it worked well in the final product.
So if people want to know where the movie's going to be showing, is there a website they can go to?
Yes, sir. You can go to paulspromisemovie.com. Everything is there, including a tab for theaters, and they can click on that and find out where the theater is playing closest to them.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate your taking time. I know that you're about to take off and go into all sorts of premieres all over the country, but we thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Truly my pleasure. I'd love to come back anytime.
Well, Holly, we've run out of time. We have completely run out of time. I don't even have time to tell people to write us. Folks, we'll see you again next week. Yeah, there you go. Write us. We'll see you again next week, though, okay?